stop what you are doing, not in a moment. Now, whatever is open on another tab, whatever conversation is half finished in another window, whatever task your hands are in the middle of, set it down. Because what I received this morning is not the kind of thing that benefits from divided attention, and I am not going to deliver it into the background of your day like it is ambient noise. This is not ambient. This is specific to you, to today, to a window of time that is open right now and will not be open in the same way tomorrow. And I need you to be fully inside this reading before I say the next thing. Not scrolling past it, not filing it as something to come back to. Here, present, with both hands free and enough of your attention available that what I am about to tell you actually lands where it is supposed to land. Are you sitting good? Something shifted this morning. In the energetic landscape of your situation, whatever specific situation is the live wire in your life right now, the one you carry differently than everything else, the one whose resolution or non resolution is the underlying current beneath your ordinary days, something moved, not slowly, not in the gradual, barely perceptible way that most things move. With the specific, sudden, almost audible quality of a lock turning, a lock that has been closed for a while. I need to be honest with you about why I almost did not record this today. Not because the message was unclear. It was one of the clearest things I have received in months, and that clarity is part of what gave me pause. Because messages this clear, this compressed, this precise in their timing carry a responsibility that I take seriously. Getting this wrong, delivering it too vaguely, or softening it past the point of usefulness, or burying the urgent part in so much preamble that it does not reach you in time would be a failure of the purpose of this work. So I am going to say it directly. Today is the day something arrives that you did not see coming. And the warning is not that it will be bad. The warning is that it will require you to be present for it in a way you may not be if you go into it the same way you have been, going into your days recently, slightly defended, slightly at a remove from your own life, slightly in the management position that extended uncertainty tends to produce in people who are still waiting for something to resolve. Today requires you off the management position. Today requires you in the room. A lock that has been closed for a while. I need to be honest with you about why I almost did not record this today. Not because the message was unclear. It was one of the clearest things I have received in months, and that clarity is part of what gave me pause. Because messages this clear, this compressed, this precise in their timing carry a responsibility that I take seriously. Getting this wrong, delivering it too vaguely, or softening it past the point of usefulness, or burying the urgent part in so much preamble that it does not reach you in time would be a failure of the purpose of this work. So I am going to say it directly. Today is the day something arrives that you did not see coming. And the warning is not that it will be bad. The warning is that it will require you to be present for it in a way you may not be if you go into it the same way you have been going into your days recently. Slightly defended, slightly at a remove from your own life, slightly in the management position that extended uncertainty tends to produce in people who are still waiting for something to resolve. Today requires you off the management position. Today requires you in the room. Let me speak to why today, because The why matters, and I feel it clearly enough to deliver it with specificity. Not every day has this quality. Most days are the ordinary continuation of whatever processes are already underway in a person's life. The slow, unsexy, necessary work of living inside a situation that has not yet resolved. The accumulated small moments that will eventually look in retrospect like the building of something, but that feel in real time simply like more of the same. Today is not more of the same. Today sits at the intersection of three separate timelines that have been moving independently of each other. Yours, the other person's, and the situation's own internal logic, and have now reached the same point simultaneously. That convergence does not happen by accident, and it does not happen often. It happens when enough individual pieces have moved far enough along their own trajectories that they begin to interact with each other in ways they could not before. Think of it like three rivers that have each been flowing in their own valleys, finally reaching the same plain. The water does not know it is converging. The rivers do not consult each other. But the geography eventually produces the meeting, whether the rivers plan for it or not. Your geography is producing the meeting today. That is why today. Not because the universe scheduled it or because any single person decided this was the moment. Because the conditions finally exist for something that could not happen before the conditions existed. You did not make this happen. You simply lived long enough inside the situation for the conditions to assemble themselves. Let me tell you what I feel approaching. It has two parts. They are related, but they do not arrive at the same time. And understanding which comes first and which comes second is going to help you navigate the space between them without losing your footing. The first part is information, something you learn today. Not gradually, not through the slow accumulation of clues that assembles itself into a picture over time, in the direct, immediate, this is what is actually happening way that information arrives when it has been held back long enough and the circumstances finally create the channel for it to move through. The source of this information is someone you know, someone with a position in your life or in the life of your situation that gives them access to something you have not had access to. They have been in possession of this for longer than today. What changes today is not the information itself, but their decision to release it. Something happened recently, possibly as recently as last night, that moved them from the position of knowing and not telling to the position of knowing and needing to tell. The need is genuine. The timing is not accidental. When they reach you, and they will reach you today, in whatever form the reaching takes, do not be in a hurry to respond before you have fully absorbed what they are offering. The instinct, when significant information arrives, is to immediately begin processing what to do with it. Resist that instinct long enough to actually receive the information first. To let it settle into its real shape before you begin reorganizing your understanding of your situation around it. The reorganization is going to be significant. Give it the space it needs, rather than rushing it into something manageable before it has finished arriving. The second part is a decision, yours, one that becomes available as a direct result of the information. A choice that did not exist before today, or more precisely, a choice that existed in theory, but that did not have the grounding in sufficient information to be made honestly that the information unlocks. You have been waiting, without perhaps naming it as waiting, for enough clarity to make this decision from a place of genuine knowing rather than educated guessing, navigating around it, making provisional arrangements in your life that do not commit you in either direction, because committing in either direction without this information would have required a leap across a gap that felt too wide. The gap is closing today. The information fills it. Not completely complete information is rarely available before we are required to act, but enough. Enough that the decision, when you make it, will be made from ground rather than from air, from something you actually know rather than from your best interpretation of what you have been able to see. The decision itself is not what I am going to tell you to make. That belongs to you and to the specific landscape of your actual life that I can feel but cannot live inside of. What I will say is this: the version of you that receives the information clearly and takes the time to let it settle before responding is the version that makes the decision from the best available position. The version that reacts before the information has fully landed makes the decision from shock. And shock, even when the thing that produced it is ultimately good, is not a reliable foundation for a choice that matters. Today, the sequence is everything. Receive, settle, decide. In that order. I want to speak to something that came through alongside the primary message, and that I feel is as important as what I have already said. You are not as alone in this as you have felt. The specific quality of aloneness I am speaking to is the kind that comes from navigating something significant without anyone who has the full picture, where the people around you have pieces enough to be supportive, enough to care, not enough to fully understand the specific weight of what you are carrying, where the internal experience of your situation has outpaced what you have been able to share with anyone, not because you do not want to share it, but because the sharing would require explaining more than any single conversation can hold. That aloneness is about to shift, not because the information arriving today is going to make everything suddenly explainable to everyone, but because the person bringing the information to you has more of the picture than you currently know they have, more than they have shown, more than the nature of your interactions with them has given you reason to suspect. And when they reach you today, in whatever form, through whatever channel, there is going to be a moment where the full scope of what they know becomes apparent, where you realize that you have been less alone in this than you thought, that someone has been carrying awareness of your situation alongside their own for longer than you were told. That moment is going to produce something in you that you should not try to manage before it has moved through completely. Let it, whatever it is. Let me speak to the person who is not bringing information, but who is affected by today regardless. There is someone in your situation connected to the live wire, part of the current that runs underneath your ordinary days, who is also moving today. Not toward you necessarily, moving in their own direction, through their own morning, with the weight of their own version of whatever sits unresolved between you. And something is going to happen in their day that confronts them with a piece of the reality of your situation that they have been successfully avoiding, confronting until now. The avoidance ends today, not because they chose to end it, because something in the landscape of circumstances shifted the same lock that turned this morning affects their world too, differently, from a different angle, and the thing they have been successfully not looking at directly is now unavoidable. They are going to have a reaction. The reaction is going to move in your direction, not immediately. There is going to be a period, hours, possibly the rest of today, where they sit with what they can no longer avoid seeing, where the processing happens in the privacy of their own interior before any of it becomes visible in their behavior toward you. But it is going to become visible within this window. Watch for the change in how they reach for you, or the sudden quality of contact that feels different from the usual contact, or the absence where there has been presence that has a different texture from ordinary silence. Something in how they are with you is changing today. Let it change. Do not preempt it with a move of your own before it has arrived. I want to stop here for a moment, not to soften what I have said, but to add something that the urgency of the rest of this reading has not left much room for. You have handled this with more dignity than you have given yourself credit for. Whatever the specific nature of what has been sitting unresolved in your life, however long it has been sitting there, however many ordinary days you have moved through while carrying the specific, unshared weight of its unresolvedness, you have not broken under it. You have not made moves that cost you your self-respect. You have not become a smaller or more reactive or less honest version of yourself in response to circumstances that would have produced exactly those outcomes in someone with less interior resource. That matters. Not because it earns you what is arriving today, as though today's development is a reward for your good behavior, which is not how any of this works, but because who you have been through, this is who you are going to be receiving what comes. And who you have been through this is someone with enough self possession and enough clarity and enough genuine, hard won understanding of their own situation to handle today's information well. You are prepared, not in the way of someone who was given advance notice and had time to prepare, in the way of someone who has been living inside a situation for long enough to have developed through the living the specific interior resources that the situation eventually required. Today, it requires them. You have them. The warning in the title is real. But I want to clarify what it is a warning about, because warnings about good things are not common in this kind of reading, and I want to make sure you understand what kind of warning this is. You are being warned to be present. That is the whole warning. To not be in your head when what is arriving needs you in your life. To not be managing when what is arriving needs you receiving. To not be defended against surprise when the surprise arriving today is not the kind that requires defense, but the kind that requires openness. The speechless that the title promises is not the speechless of devastation. It is the speechless of something landing so precisely in the space that has been waiting for it that you do not have an immediate response, because response requires language and language requires a moment to arrive. And in the first instant of what is coming, there is no moment, there is just the landing, the actual physical happening right now reality of something you have been waiting for without quite knowing you were waiting. That landing is today, and you are going to be okay, more than okay. You are going to be standing in your own life looking at what has just arrived in it with the specific, wide eyed, slightly stunned quality of someone who prepared for more difficulty than they got. The difficulty prepared you. What you are actually getting is something else. The difficulty prepared you. What you are actually getting is something else. Let me speak to the speechless specifically, because it deserves its own description rather than simply being named as an outcome. Speechless is not an absence of thought. When people say they were speechless, they sometimes mean overwhelmed. They sometimes mean shocked into silence. They sometimes mean the cognitive overload of too much arriving at once with nowhere to put any of it. Those are all real forms of speechless. But the speechless I feel approaching you today is different in texture from all of those. It is the speechless of recognition. The specific quality of silence that arrives when something lands so precisely in the shape of something you have been carrying that the two things fit together without any friction. When what arrives from outside matches what was waiting inside with an accuracy that the mind, in the first moment of receiving it, cannot account for. That produces silence not because there is nothing to say, but because saying anything would interrupt the particular irreplaceable quality of the moment of fitting. You have been carrying a shape. What arrives today is what was meant to fill it. That moment, the moment of fitting, is wordless, not because you are devastated or overwhelmed or incapable of response, because you are, for that moment, completely full, complete in a way that is its own kind of communication, its own language, one that does not require words, because words would add nothing to what is already in that moment entirely expressed. That is the speechless you are going to feel. Let it be what it is without immediately reaching for language to contain it. The language will come. The moment does not need it. One thing before this closes. When today is done, when the information has arrived and settled and the decision it opens has begun to take shape and the person who is moving has moved in whatever direction they move, take a moment that belongs only to you, not to process, not to plan, not to begin the work of figuring out what comes next. Just to notice that something changed, that the ordinary day you woke into is not the ordinary day you are closing, that the landscape shifted, that the lock turned, that what was unresolved this morning has a different quality to it by evening. You do not have to know yet what to do with the difference. You just have to let yourself feel that the difference is real. Because it is today, it is